When we see our kids struggling, I think we want to help. Sometimes we need to let them struggle. The best sound bites always came if I paused. It can be uncomfortable, but you will always get the best information. We're not after perfection, we're after practice.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Positively Healthy Mom. I'm your host, Laura Ollinger, teen and parent well-being coach and founder of Positively Healthy Coaching. And you're going to love today's guest. We have Elizabeth Green, who is the founder of My Speech and Debate Coach, and she's all about helping kids and teens find their voice and use it with confidence. What's so cool is she actually started out super shy, that type of kid who's just dreaded speaking in class, until a teacher completely changed her life. The experience led her to become a broadcast news anchor, and now she's paying it forward by helping young people around the world build the same confidence, connection, and communication skills. So welcome, Elizabeth. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So first, the story I want to know is what happened with the teacher that changed your life?
I mean, absolutely changed my life. So I was extremely shy as a child, like you said.
Mhm.
I have a very vivid memory one morning of getting on the bus, and the bus driver didn't let me and my best friend sit together, and I cried because I was so afraid of being alone or being with somebody who I didn't know. That's the kind of kid I was, just very, very shy. Didn't want to talk to
Mhm.
anybody, not even really other kids.
Yeah.
And
And what grade, about how old were you then?
that was probably elementary school, late elementary school, because I
Okay.
remember that feeling.
Yeah.
And then in junior high or middle school,
Mhm.
we had to take a speech class, and I dreaded it with all of my being. I felt sick before I had to give the speech. I don't remember what the speech was even about. I just remember feeling absolutely terrified, didn't want to do it, but had to do it. And I was a good student, so I wanted to do my best, but I was terrified of it.
Mhm.
And her name was Miss Day. She was the leader of the speech and debate team for our school. And she saw potential in me in that one, I'm sure not very good speech, but she made me feel so good afterwards. She literally convinced me to join the speech and debate team, where I went
Wow.
on and did competitions. I won scholarships. Like you said, I went on to become a broadcast news reporter, and it just really opened me up to
Mhm.
feeling confident in what I had to say and comfortable
Mhm.
talking to people. And absolutely, just that one class, that one speech, that one teacher, I always say, literally changed the trajectory of my life.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you
Yeah.
remember anything specific that she said, or was it more the feeling that you remember?
It was absolutely the feeling, because I
Mhm.
guess I don't remember the speech. I don't remember what feedback she gave me. I'm assuming it was probably just all positive. She just boosted, built me up. But no,
Yeah.
I just remember the feeling of like, okay, I can do this. I don't necessarily enjoy doing it. It still makes me feel sick, but I can do it, and I can do it pretty good. So I'm going to do it. And then the more
Yeah.
I did it, the more that feeling went away and just the enjoyment factor came in.
Yes. And so how did that and becoming a not broadcast news anchor then turn you into a coach for speech and debate kids?
So, one of those situations that that, like, if you think of the way your life's gonna go, mine did not go that way.
Yeah.
I would have, if you would have asked me 30 years ago, I would say today I would be on Good Morning America. That was what I was gonna do,
Mhm.
and there was no changing my attitude on that. My husband and I got pregnant. Unexpectedly, we had literally just moved 8 hours from our family, both of
Oh.
our families, and started new jobs. I was a news reporter at that time,
Mhm.
and 2 weeks into the job, I woke up with feeling sick, and my husband went and got me a Sprite and a pregnancy test, and that was it. So after having my son, I realized I can't live that kind of life where it's just a very demanding career. And I
Yeah.
didn't want that. And
Mhm.
so I worked in corporate communications for about a decade. And then one of the blessings that came out of COVID for me was randomly seeing an ad for teaching kids online. And my husband is a PE teacher at a public school. And I tried to get him to do it, thinking, hey, we could just make a little bit extra money. And
Yeah.
he was already having to do virtual learning, and it was new to everybody, and it was awful. And so he was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so I randomly threw out a couple of classes on journalism,
Mhm.
and it somehow spiraled into becoming the top speech and debate provider on the OutSchool platform. So I grew. I have a team of teachers. We've taught over 14,000 kids, which is incredible. And but again, something that I never ever in a million years would have pegged for it to be my
Yes.
life now. But I'm so grateful for the way it did.
Yeah, that absolutely. I feel like that's the way life happens, right? It's always
Yep.
the unexpected, and we always say, "Oh, I could have never imagined that," but it
Right.
sounds like yes, yes. And so I know that you are, really what you focus on with the speaking and the communication is something that you call like the 4 Ps of building confidence. Can you tell us like what that is?
Yeah. Well, and actually, let's just back up just a little bit too, because we do teach speech and debate, but our primary mission is to build confidence and communication skills in kids and teens around the world. If
Okay.
some of our kids go on to compete, that's fantastic. If they want to participate in actual speech and debate competitions, that's great. That's a fantastic extracurricular to be involved in. There's so many
Hmm.
benefits to it. But if all they do is walk out of our class feeling more confident and using their voice, that's what we're
Mm.
after. That is
Okay.
so important because public speaking is the number one fear for most people. Like,
Yes,
people
absolutely.
literally would prefer to be in the casket than
Yes.
giving a eulogy,
Yes.
like that. And that's
Yes.
wild. And of course, I was one of those people until things changed for me.
Yeah.
And it's not so much about being able to stand up on a stage and command an audience. It is literally about being confident and using your voice. And
Mm.
that strengthens relationships. I mean, obviously, that's great for any work environment, but we have to be able to communicate in order to have strong and healthy relationships. And they say that kids who are confident in themselves, and especially in communicating, are less
Mhm.
likely to fall to peer pressure. They are more likely to
Mm.
stand up for people in situations where somebody's being picked on, all the things that we want our kids to be confident in being a good person, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so just building the basic communication skills in them, whether they ever like go on to do it in a competitive form, that's
Okay.
neither here nor there. It's about building
Ah.
that communication that's going to serve them for life.
Okay. I'm so glad
So,
you helped me understand that because, yeah, I felt like, oh, this is, great for speech and debate kids and anyone who does a lot of public speaking. But really, it's
right.
just almost every kid who needs to
Everybody.
learn and build those communication skills because they're going to use that in every form of their life because that's kind of what we do. We communicate as humans. So that's so awesome. I'm
Absolutely.
glad that you're like, catering to kind of such a wide audience because again that is one of the biggest struggles that I see when I'm coaching with teenagers is how do I say this to my friend or how do I say this to my boyfriend? Like I even have one boy I'm coaching right now who's going to break up with his girlfriend. And so we're like coaching them through on like what how is he going to say it, what's going to happen if this happened, like we're going through all the scenarios. And so I
Right.
know that that's something, and even my own kids sometimes they'll say, Mom, how should I write this email or what should I say in this text, right? It's always like
Yeah.
forming the idea, coming up with I mean, you would know it better than I would, but like coming up with the content and then like really checking the tone and then making
Yes.
sure we've covered everything and just like being respectful, being kind. It's like there's so
Right.
many boxes that have to be checked. And that's just like everyday life stuff. That's not even counting
Right.
like the more professional type things or like you're saying competition based.
Yeah.
So yes, yes. Okay. So
So,
now that we're kind of understanding that part, like is that how you start with the clients that you're working with or in the class? Like, is it the 4 Ps that we're referring to, or is there something else we need to talk about first?
yeah, no, we can definitely dive into the 4 Ps. And these are the approaches we take with our students. These are things that were life learned lessons for me and things I try
Hmm.
to do as a mom with my kids. To
Hmm.
again, the main thing is we want them to feel confident using their voice. That's what we're after.
Okay.
Um, so the very first P is
Okay.
patience. So this can be difficult, I think, especially for moms when we see our kids struggling with anything. We want to help, right? Sometimes we need to let them struggle. And so when I say that, I mean give them patience to produce what they want to say. So how many times are you talking to your child and they're like, "Oh, I can't think of the word for it." And we pop in and we're like, "What was this or whatever?" Or like you
Mm.
said, your kids are asking you, "What do I say to my teacher?" And we say this instead
Mhm.
of, "Well, let's think about it. What do you think you should say?"
Mm.
Patience is one of, I mean, it sounds so obvious, but we are busy people, especially as moms, right? And we
Mhm.
don't always have the time to give them the space to figure out what they want to say. But
Yeah.
when we have that time, it is really important. One, one of the things that I learned in journalism school was the power of the pause. And this kind of falls in line with being patient.
Yeah.
Um, and it was when you're asking somebody a question, when you're interviewing them and they
Mhm.
stop talking, give it a couple of seconds before you start again.
Mm,
And it never fail. It's awkward. It feels very awkward. You have to we don't like silence. We want
no.
to fill silence. And so it's our instinct to just go on to the next thing, but it
Mhm.
never failed. Out of the thousands of people I interviewed, the best sound bites always came if I paused. And
Mm,
then they would deliver the impactful, the part that they were really feeling but couldn't figure out how to say. And
mhm,
so for our kids, sometimes we're not interviewing them, but just being patient to let them figure out the words that they want to use if they can't find the word, or without diving right into the next thing, just giving them that pause. And again, it can be uncomfortable, but you will always get the best information if you just pause. And a personal example, my 16-year-old is has his first girlfriend, and I wanna ask all the questions. I'm his mom, and I'm a reporter at heart. I wanna ask all the questions, but I have had to make myself listen to what he says and then pause instead of being like, "Well, what about this? What do you think about
mhm,
this?" And it most of the time sometimes that's the end of it, he doesn't have anything else to say, but sometimes he has something else to say, and it takes the conversation in a whole different way than it would have. So,
mhm,
the power of the pause and just being patient and not filling in the blanks for them. Let them
mm.
fill in the blanks themselves.
I
That's our
think that's
first.
great. And especially with boys as well, because I feel like you and I are like energetically a match because we're kind of fast paced and we're
Yes.
enthusiastic. And I have one of my sons is a little bit slower. He's a little bit, it's not that he's a slow person. He just like the way he
Right.
communicates.
Yes.
And so I find myself having to like slow down and kind of like match his speed and just kind of be
Yeah.
present, wait and see. So I love the advice you're giving because that is, and girls can be the same way too, but my girls are both kind of like more like me. They're like, okay, da, da, da,
Yeah.
and so it's interesting, you really have to you do have to adjust and kind of sometimes, like you're saying, kind of just pause and allow
Yeah.
and see because you're right. Like sometimes he will say something. I'm like, oh, come from,
Yeah.
right?
Right. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is really power in that silence. Whenever we can't do that all the time, right? But when we're
Yeah.
consciously thinking about it, especially if you're having what seem to be important conversations. Don't rush
Mhm.
from one thing to the next. But
Yeah.
like I said, even just in the everyday of them not being able to find the word that they're looking for, let them
Mhm.
sort it out. As moms, we want to fix it, but
Yes.
let them sort it out so that they can figure out if they can't think of the word they're looking for, they can find a synonym or something in their brains. Their brains are totally capable of doing it. We just have to let them.
Yes. And from a neuroscience perspective, I always call it like the muscle building, right? Like the more we're allowing their brain to do that search and find the process, they're actually strengthening the neural connections. So that way it
Yeah.
gets easier and easier and easier, just like you're doing your reps at the gym with a 5 pound weight. And then all of a sudden you're like,
Right.
oh, well, now I'm ready for the 10 pounder because that was easy, right? And so
Right.
it's like by interrupting, you're kind of interrupting that neurocircuitry. So, okay. Yes, I
Yeah.
just had to throw in that little brain science stuff there for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so patience, and so what would be the next step?
So one thing that we do a lot of in our classes, and this is something that the kids absolutely love. I even do this with my kids and their friends when they're at our house. Is well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the P is prompts, prompting them to have communication with you. So another back to journalism school, right? We were taught
Mhm.
never ask closed end questions. You never
Yes.
ask something that's going to give a yes or a no. You can't use a
Mhm.
sound bite like that. You have to use open ended questions.
Mhm.
So, and I think about like so my son comes home from school. How was your day? Eh, that's it, right? Or
Right.
if he comes home from school and I say, what did you all do today in agriculture class? What are you growing? What did you learn? He
Mhm.
still might not be super excited to have the conversation with me
Yeah.
because it's school and,
Right.
he doesn't love it,
Yeah.
but I get more information out of him that way.
Mhm.
So asking open-ended questions is huge, but also, think about the last time you ran into a friend, and most of the time our conversations are, "Hey, how have you been?" "Good, good. How about you?" "Good." We learned nothing, right? Everybody
Yeah.
says good even if things really aren't good. But if
Right.
you run into somebody and they're like, "Hey, how's your mom doing after that surgery?" Or,
Mm.
"What did y'all do this weekend? Did you do anything fun?" Like that is where we build conversation and
Mhm.
we so lean on the how have you been? And it tells
Yeah.
us nothing. It's just superficial. But we need to do the same thing with our kids and prompting them to give us real information if we want to know how their day is.
Mhm.
Hey, did you have a chance to talk with Steven? I know you guys were kind of upset with each other the other day. Did you all get a chance to talk it out? What did
Mhm.
that look like? Just being able to really prompt them with things that they hopefully will want to talk to you about, but not always. But just asking those questions where we're looking for real answers, not just a yes or no or good, can change the course of the conversation. And so what we do in our classes is we
Mhm.
do a lot of would you rather questions. And the way we teach it, we're teaching them to do public speaking. So what we do is we always say, we're going to ask you a question. You're going to answer the question, but you have to answer it in sentence form and in speech form. And so this is a very simple process that you can teach your kids. It's answer it with a beginning, a middle, and an end. That is super simple, right? So what does
Mhm.
that mean? The beginning is answer the question. Well, if the question is, would you rather live in outer space or in the ocean? Right? They should start with, I would rather
Mm.
live here. Give me a couple of reasons. And then we always say, if you just stop talking after you give us your reasons for this thought, we don't know that you're done. So if you do want it to sound like a polished and professional speech, then you always circle back to the beginning. And so after giving
Mm.
the reasons, then a simple way to do that is, so those are a few reasons why I'd rather live in outer space.
Oh,
And now we don't communicate like that
yeah.
regularly, but
Mhm.
in a situation where you want to sound polished and professional, that
Mhm.
is a super easy way to do it. And it's very easy for the kids to grasp this. I even was watching an interview with Taylor Swift the other day and noticed how she did it, like on the late night shows. That's what she did with every question. She would answer
Oh,
it,
really?
explain, and always circle back. Yeah. So it feels closed, like, oh, I learned
Yeah.
something. And again, that's not way that we communicate regularly, but it is a
Mhm.
good skill to be able to have. But we do this in our classes and the kids love it. And then my house is kind of the go-to house. There are always extra children at my house.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so
Same. Yeah.
at dinner time, I will often I have like a gross would you rather book because we have boys here. And
Mhm.
I'll pull that book out and I'll ask them a question and they have to answer it that way. Like I
Yeah.
remind them, this is the way you have to do it. And it's funny because they're always like, no, we don't want to do school. And then I answer or ask the question and they start raising their hands. Like they want to
They
share,
want to. Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
Yes. And so in that realm, we're practicing public speaking more so than communications. But
Mhm.
so it's a matter of just in general, prompting them with open-ended questions. Have it like if you're in the car and you got, you're just, it's silent, ask silly, would you rather questions or two truths and a lie. Anytime we do this, they're practicing. And the more they do it, the
Mm.
better they're going to get, like you said earlier. So
Yeah.
and I say the magic of our classes is not that we are doing something magical. We are giving kids an opportunity to share their thoughts and opinions about things, sometimes silly things, sometimes real world issues, and we're
Yeah.
actively listening. That's it.
Mm.
That's what they love. They have real thoughts and opinions on things. And if we give them an opportunity to share, they feel valued and they practice it and they learn how to share better and better each time.
Wow. I'm actually so glad that I did come across you as a resource because my daughter is, well, my oldest, I have four kids, and my oldest is now an amazing public speaker. And the way she became an amazing public speaker is because in her seventh grade leadership class, this is what the teacher was having them do. She would have them, and sometimes it was a planned speech, and other times it was just like rapid fire, stand up
Yes.
and give an impromptu speech on. And
Yeah.
my daughter hated it at first. She hated it, and she always says, and you take this with a grain of salt. She goes, "I got bullied into being confident." Because the teacher was just so like structured and strict about it, but
Yeah.
the teacher was determined to get these kids to be able to do it, and it worked.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
yeah, it's just like that repetition of like sharing your thoughts and ideas and having people listen, and then being like, oh, I didn't die, like nothing terrible
Right.
happened, like just getting that practice and probably really good feedback when they're in your group. So
Yeah.
I think that's so fun. There's one question I once asked. So I took my son and my other kids out for his birthday, but we also had his friend and then his girlfriend. And this was several years ago. So keep in mind, like, this is like middle school, you know?
Yeah.
and my younger daughter. And so I was trying to think like, how can I get this little group to bond? Because it was like a very awkward, it was like my daughter
Yeah.
was like 10, and then this teenage girl that he was dating was like 14. And like, how does this come together? So I
Yeah.
ended up randomly asking this question: what would you do if your friend had spinach stuck in their teeth? Would you tell them? Would you not? Would you did it?
Yeah.
And so it ended up, and they were like, "Mom, that is such a weird question." But it ended up like becoming this whole conversation about, well, then
Yeah.
would you want someone to tell you, and da da da, and all this stuff. And so I
Right.
just love that idea of the open ended and the kind of hypothetical situations and kind of letting them sort it out. And it can create some like fun dialogues for sure. So
Yes. Absolutely.
okay.
And
Yeah.
just to add on to that really quickly, that if you are doing that in class, that can
Hmm.
be very intimidating. But if you're doing it at home regularly, then what's going to happen when you're asked to do that in class? It's a little bit more comfortable. And it all goes back to being public speaking being a fear. So the more we can do at home to help them feel confident in situations like that, the
Yeah.
less scary it is when they're around other people. But I
Oh,
love that.
okay.
And it's interesting that our kids love it. I mean, the first class they come to, it's always like, I'm sure they're nervous about it. I would have been too, but then they're like, "Oh, okay. This is easy enough. I can do this." And they're just
Yeah.
sharing, things that they're interested in. So it's a
Yeah.
little thing, but the confidence we see grow from that is extreme.
Okay. Oh, actually, yeah, that was the last part of my story, which is I'm so disappointed because they are not offering that class this year. And so my oldest daughter took that one, but now my youngest daughter isn't able to take it. And I was so excited for
Oh,
her to be able. So maybe that's why I'm saying I'm glad we found you, and maybe her friends can join you as well
yeah,
in a speaking class. So
love it.
okay, so that's number two. So what's next?
All right. This is the hard one too for parents, but push them. Push them out of their comfort zone.
Okay.
Most kids are not going to volunteer to read a verse at church or say the pledge at scouts. Some
Hmm.
kids will. Some kids love it, right? Some are
Hmm.
natural communicators and they
Yeah.
want to be seen and heard. Most people aren't. They're not going to volunteer to do it. Volunteer them. My parents did this to me too. And I was terrified when I would
Uh-huh.
have to get up and read the verse in church. And afterwards, everybody would come up and say, "Oh, you did such a great job. You did such a great job." That just boosted my confidence every single
Hmm.
time. So, push them to do things that they're not necessarily comfortable with, because that's the only way we can get better and get more comfortable is by doing things. But I
Yeah.
also like to say, safely let them talk to strangers. If you are going through the checkout line and somebody's saying, "Oh, how was your all's day?"
Hmm.
They should speak up too. They're being spoken to as well. And now,
Mm,
oftentimes, like the cashier's probably just going to talk to the adult. But if
yeah.
somebody's addressing your child, let your child respond. Let them order their meal at McDonald's or at a restaurant. Let
Hmm.
them call and order pizza for pizza night.
Yes.
My son, recently, we've gone through getting a driver's license and
Hmm.
insurance. I had him call our insurance company to get the quote about adding him to our policy.
That's
And
amazing.
it's it can be funny because they don't know what to say sometimes. And the first time I had my son make a phone call like that, they answered and they were like, "Hey, this is Nancy," and he was like, "Hi." And there was this pause, and then she was like, "How can I help you?" And so, but you have to do it to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And in college, one of my best friends and my roommates was so shy. She would beg us to call and order pizza for her. This is
Are
a
you serious?
19-year-old woman, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the sooner we get our kids doing things like that in
Yeah.
everyday life, the less scary it becomes. I believe public speaking is a fear that we build into them. I don't
Mm,
think that most people are like, I mean, no, people don't like to get up on a stage, right? That's given. But
yeah.
being able to pick up the phone and call somebody, like if we don't give them the exposure to that, of course it's going to be scary because they've never done it. But
Mhm.
if they're having an issue at school, maybe they disagree with a grade they got from the teacher, you don't reach out, have them reach out. And I'm talking like middle school level. They should be
Yeah.
able to do this. So giving them those opportunities and pushing them to take them, even if they're like, "I don't want to do that." Well, just like our speech and debate classes. I know a lot of kids don't come to our classes at first willingly, right?
Yeah.
Parents are signing them up because they see the value in it. Now, thankfully, we're able to convert them pretty quickly and they
Mm,
end up loving it and want to continue. But oftentimes it's going to take us pushing them a little out of their comfort zone to do these things. And the more they do
mm.
it and the younger they do it, the less of a chance that it will ever even be a fear of theirs.
Yes, yes. And I'm just thinking of all the people I know that I've kind of had to go through this process with, kind of teaching life skills.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've had clients where the parent thought that the teenager should be able to make their own doctor's appointment and even go to the doctor by themselves. And one of my clients I remember was afraid to discuss medication because she didn't know all the names of them. And so we literally like started with having her call and order pizza. Like that was
Yeah.
the step one. Like that's
Yeah.
such a great practice ground because the barrier, the threshold is very low for messing that up, right? Like how can you
Right.
mess up ordering pizza? Or if you do, who cares, right? It's probably just some, person that's answering the phone and they get a million calls and they're never going to
Right.
remember who said what to them. So it's like not a big deal. But yeah, like to kind of work up the confidence to then be able to go and talk to her doctor about her medication and how she was
Yeah.
feeling. And so yeah, it's definitely a skill, and like getting all those reps in to get to that point in life is such an important life skill. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that that's something that you're teaching. That's so awesome.
And that's just
Um,
something we just naturally do, right? We're the mom. We're going to just do the things. We're going to get it
yes.
done, But when you have the time, and I even say, like, I'm not going to give you the phone number, Google it. You can find the phone number,
Yes.
those just little things like that when we don't give them everything and we don't do everything for them. And that's something
Mhm.
as a mom, it's really hard sometimes,
I know.
but it is important that we're cognizant of that and giving them those opportunities when we can.
Yeah. And also, again, with like different kids and different personalities, I find that I'm a little bit more expecting more, I guess, of my daughters. I mean, I just feel like they and my sons are perfectly capable, but for some reason, I think they're just boys, and I just assume they don't know. And so
Yeah.
I find myself like doing more, but yeah, it's like having to like allow that and hold myself back and be like, oh wait, they're perfectly capable if they can do
Yeah.
this. I always say, I tell people, if your kid can play an iPad, which is like what, 2 years old, and
Yeah.
not that I'm actually saying this, but like if they can play an iPad, they can do their own laundry, right? Another like
Yeah.
life skill. If they
Yeah.
can learn how to push this button and this button and do this, like that's all it takes, right? And so it's
Right.
like if you can do this, then you can do that. And so I really need to realize that, if my kids are capable, my boys are capable of talking to their coaches and their friends just fine, then they're totally capable of being able to call and reschedule their orthodontist appointment, right? Like, of course they
Right.
can do that. So, yes, but just having that awareness. And I think like this conversation today is giving me some ideas. So I'm thankful for this. Awesome. Okay. So, what is our last P then?
Our last P is praise.
Mm,
Praise, praise, praise. We're putting them in situations that they're not totally comfortable in. We're putting them
mhm.
in situations to call and order pizza for the very first time. And now I'm not going to be like, "Oh, you did such a great job
Yeah.
ordering pizza." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But especially in those situations where it's something that made them uncomfortable. I'm really proud of you. I know that was a little awkward. You did a great job. I'm proud of you for doing it.
Yeah.
And especially in those situations where if we are having them do a form of public speaking, or we're doing the prompts and we are expecting them to give it in the form of a speech to practice, even if it's just in front of us,
Hmm.
hold back the critiques. You're going to see all kinds of things that they could do better, but
Hmm.
that is the quickest way to diminish their confidence.
Mm,
Praise them, tell them what they did good. And you don't,
mm,
and not just like, oh, you did a great job. Be specific.
yeah.
You really did a great job, like holding my attention with that. Or in my case, I talk fast, right? So when I work with other students, I always have to say, like, if you're a fast talker like me, you literally have to think about slowing down. So you're
Hmm.
thinking about what you're saying and how you're saying it, and that can be challenging. So if I notice they did, hey, you did a really great job slowing down. I was able to follow you. We want them to get better, of course, and especially if it's something like a competition level, and that's a
Hmm.
little bit different. But when we're building those basic skills and that basic confidence, tell them what they did good and leave it at that. Now,
Mm,
if they say something like, "I did terrible," why do you think that? What could you do better? But I'm not saying, yeah, well, I
yeah.
noticed you did this. I noticed you did that. Especially, like I said, we're not after perfection. We're after practice.
Yeah.
And that is going back to the very beginning of our conversation. I don't remember what Mrs. Day said to me after my speech, but
Hmm.
I am fairly positive she didn't critique me at all.
Mm,
And that just goes so far. And so, like I said, just the more they do it, the better they're going to get. And they'll do it more and more if they feel like you think they're doing a good job.
yes. Yes. It's so true. They always say it's so powerful to just have someone believe in you. And that sounds
Yeah.
exactly like what happened. Like you can really like capture or absorb that belief into your own body and
Yeah.
nervous system. And I can say for a fact, I've experienced that myself. Like I was not a great public speaker, or I was very afraid to public speak. And I had a mentor and I had my own speech coach and as an adult, and he saw so much in me. He's like, you have so much value. You have so much to deliver. You have so much energy. Like, he's like, I know you can do this. And I was like, it's like, and I believed him. Like he could
Yeah.
see that in me. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if he thinks it, then I think it too. Right. Like that's how that
Absolutely.
works. Like, I'm like, I trust him. And so therefore I'm going to believe his opinion of me instead of that was kind of like my old beliefs about myself, like what I was capable of in the past versus what he sees in me in my future. So
Right.
yes,
Right.
it can make a huge difference. Yeah.
Huge difference. And I always say, like, it's kind of the same thing as like an apology. If let's say you're in a spat with your partner and they apologize and they're like, I'm sorry I raised my voice, but nothing else matters
Yeah.
anymore. That
Yeah.
that apology is like wiped out the window. And
Yeah.
so it's the same thing with well, I think you did a great job, but here's what you should work on. And again, if we're
Mm,
talking like competitive speakers, yes, they're
yeah.
going to need that feedback, but
Yeah.
that's not what we're focused on at home, right? We're focused
Mm,
on building that confidence so that they can communicate in the world around them. And
yeah.
that most of the time means biting your tongue about telling the ways that they could do better. And we mean it from a great place,
I know.
but it's not always the best response especially in something scary like public
Yes.
speaking.
I'm so glad you're saying that. And hopefully, so many moms will be taking that to heart because, yeah, we all know the feeling, right? Like it's on the tip of our tongue. We're like, oh, and then like try to like
Yeah.
pull it back. It does
Yeah.
take a little bit of just this awareness, right? And like
Yeah.
realizing like what is helpful for my child versus what do I feel like saying right now. And like,
Yes.
it's not about you.
Right.
And I realize this is about them and what's helpful for them and not like what makes you feel like you're being a good mom because you told them something, right? Like, and so
Right.
it's just like, and I think like once you kind of can think of it that way, then it gets easier, right? And we can be like, okay, I'm just going to let my child hear the good things. And like you're saying, that those critiques and stuff, yes, maybe that's a later point. Or if they say, what could be better? How could I change? If they're asking
Right.
for the advice, or there's been a time actually just in the past few days, my daughter, like I said, she's an amazing speaker now. And she has a team in their entrepreneurship class are submitting an idea to, it's a big conference in Austin, like South by Southwest. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like it's in like an internationally renowned conference. And I'm actually not sure. And to this day, even I'm like, is this for kids? Or are you guys just entering into the adult conversation, the adult competition? She goes, well, I don't know. Anyway, so they're recording their submission the other day, and they were talking so fast. And I just went over, and of course, I'm really sensitive, and it's her with her group. And I just said, oh, I'm wondering, is there a time limit for your submission? And they said, oh, yeah, we only have 2 minutes. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
one of the guys goes, why are we talking too fast? And I'm like, well, it does sound really fast. And so that's kind of all I said. Like, I don't even know if I said, it just kind of sounds like, like this.
Yeah.
So after that, they were really receptive, and they're like, oh, we have like an extra 11 seconds spared. So they totally slowed it down and it sounded beautifully. But
Yeah.
that was only because I knew they could handle that feedback. And I
Right.
think I even said, are you open to feedback before I even asked them that? So I think like
Yeah.
that would be, if a mom is like on, debating, like, do I say this? Do I not? Always ask permission. That's kind of my rule of thumb. Like, are you
Yeah.
open to some feedback? And if they say no, then you just say, oh, okay, that's it, right? Like, there's nothing else
Yeah.
to it. There's
Right.
nothing else in the conversation. So anyway, okay, Elizabeth, we have definitely gone a little long, but that's because everything.
Sorry.
No, it's weird. I'm in like absolutely loving this conversation. I'm finding it so valuable for the moms to hear because again, this can apply to almost any situation that their kids are in, or even if they have a college age or like an older child who's like
Yeah.
doing job interviews and just like learning these skills, I think can be so incredibly valuable. So how can people find you going forward?
So we are on all the socials, but
Mhm.
our website is myspeechanddebatecoach.com. We also have a YouTube channel where we produce it's speech and debate tips in 2 minutes. So helping, and
Oh,
and they are tied to debate sometimes, but they're still
mhm.
tied to like critical thinking. They would apply to anybody. How to spot a fallacy, those things. So those are really geared towards more the kids. And then
Yeah.
we also have a podcast where we talk about ways to build confidence and communication skills in our kids. And links for all of that are on the website, but you can find us anywhere at My Speech and Debate Coach.
Perfect. And we'll add that all in the show notes. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this. And I found it, again, extremely valuable to just have a framework. And that way, the moms, if they're taking notes or whatever, they can go back and be like, okay, this is what I could do better. Maybe I need more patience. Maybe I need to push them a little more. Like, right? They can like
Yeah.
kind of self evaluate and figure out like where the imbalances are and kind of get to the right spot that they want to be. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.